Hey guys, you're listening to the Couplings Fire Podcast.
Here's a couple of things you might need to know or maybe you just forgot.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Taylor.
We are married.
And we're both firefighters.
Join us as we talk anything and everything fire related.
We don't claim to be experts. We're just two people who love to talk fire. And everything we say are our own opinions.
Our goal is to inspire anyone listening to take the steps to better their department, however they can.
Let's get on to the episode.
What do you want to talk about tonight?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Well, we sat in the hot tub and watched that documentary on the Notre Dame fire.
People are going to be like, why are you watching stuff? Like, how do you have, like, either a computer or TV or whatever out by the hot tub?
There's a lot of people. They make hot tubs with TVs in them now.
Really?
Yeah, like it comes up out of the side. There's a TV and everything.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are not that high tech.
We're not.
We are totally not. We use a crappy computer. We have a towel next to it so we don't, like, electrocute ourselves. But, like, yeah.
It's just an old computer.
It's just an old computer we don't care about, so there's that. And we have the deck built around the hot tub, so, you know, we got someplace to put it, kind of ish far away, like arm's reach.
Arm's reach.
So we don't get it wet or anything.
Yep.
So, okay. I thought I'd explain that because people would be like...
Well, I'm sure people are more creative than what you give them credit for. And a lot of people have hot tubs inside their house, so, like, they have a TV up on the wall. Anyway.
Anyhow.
Yes. So we watched a documentary on the Notre Dame fire last night.
Yeah.
Which, how long was that?
It was like a 40-minute episode.
It felt like way longer than that.
No. It was the National Geographic because we watched it on Disney Plus.
Right.
And you were so excited to see, like, because we were looking through it to watch on Disney Plus, and you're like, they have National Geographic on here?
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we watched that. That was crazy.
That was crazy. Well, for a while, we were like, oh, we could totally do an episode on this. And then we were thinking about it. No, we can't, because this is way too into it, and we don't know enough about the circumstances of that fire to do an episode on it.
We couldn't do, like, a whole episode on it, but, like, all the situation, like, the situation in general, you could talk about forever. Just, like, the craziness of not only just, like, that big fire that you have to make a plan for, and you have all these resources and have to manage all that. Like, you could just go into just that, like, just having a big fire and having a command structure and just all the difficulties that go along with that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
But then with the Notre Dame fire, you have not only the whole town of Paris watching because it's a giant fireball in the sky.
You have literally the entire world.
But then you have a worldly known
icon?
Super big icon.
Yeah.
And then, so now you have the whole town of Paris, and then all the media, and then the whole world is literally watching you either make or break on this fire.
Well, I remember watching it.
The stress of it, like, holy crap.
Yeah, I remember watching it when it was happening, because it was during the daytime in the U.S., during the workday. Mm-hmm. And I had it on the corner of the computer just watching it all day while I was working.
It was like 7 o'clock at night when... In Paris.
In Paris, yeah, when it happened.
And it was like, what, like 2 o'clock or something like that here?
I'm not going to say it. I don't know the time difference. I know it was during the daytime.
Yeah, it was during the day.
But...
It was crazy, but, like, I think you could talk about things like that whole situation in general. I mean, without even necessarily referring to Notre Dame, but just the whole situation and the stress. And, like, they did a good job in the documentary of just how everything was communicated and coordinated and trying to figure out solutions to problems. And then you start just adding in all these crazy stress factors that nobody's ever going to see in their lifetime except for these, what they say, like 600 firefighters?
Yeah, 600.
There's 600 firefighters, and then like 25 of them like made it into the documentary.
Right.
But it's just like, you're never going to see these problems, especially on a day of the life, but like, just like in general, like that's a once in a lifetime, like, what would they be like? I suppose the World Trade Centers was probably like kind of the equivalent of that, because you had so much media and stuff covering it, but like it was so chaotic. Like the press wasn't specifically like pointed at the fire department, going, "What are you gonna do about this?" And
Yeah.
it was just chaos all over.
Yeah.
Where this situation was specifically like fire department oriented. Save this building.
Please,
We're
like, what are you
watching
gonna do?
you know.
It's really, really funny because you think about it, and they did a really good job of actually containing or putting it out and everything. And like you're watching this thing, and even that day we were watching it, like it's taking forever. But if you look at the scope of things and how bad the fire was, and how big that building is, and how crazy all the circumstances were, from what the documentary said, it was like 5 hours until they had it under control and like really getting it like coming down. Like. And I mean, granted, they still had mop up they had to do, but they were back in that building 12 hours from when it started to assess the damage. That's not bad.
I don't even think it was 5 hours. I think it was like 3 or 3.5.
It was 4 or 5, and that's why I said 5 because I just couldn't quite remember. But they were back in that building 12 hours after it started to assess the damage, and that if you think about it, they do a really good job on that because how many just regular house fires have we seen that takes that long just for a small house fire? And they did Notre Dame. Like
we've definitely had the fires that kick our butts before, and we've been
Yeah.
there for 3 hours trying to find, put out fire, and
So one question I gotta ask though, and I'm not gonna judge them like anything because maybe I'm sure there's a reason, but while we were watching that documentary, the 20-ish firefighters they had go up to the bell tower, we were watching that footage they had, and they didn't have air packs on.
Yeah, and it was like live footage too.
Yeah, and I'm very curious as to why they didn't. I'm not going to bash them or anything because maybe there's a reason they didn't, or because you were mentioning, Chris, that maybe they ran out of compressed air.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't know that they must have had some reason not to have it.
Oh, I'm sure.
So it just floored me. I'm like, they're up there, they're close enough to the fire. Why aren't they wearing their air packs? Like, it didn't make any sense to me.
Like up in the bell towers.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Yeah, like especially when they were saying they had to fight fires up in the actual like framework of the bell towers. And, like they were like right there with it. It was like,
Yeah.
But,
And maybe a couple people have them we didn't see or whatever, but like the footage we saw on that documentary, we didn't see anyone with it.
yeah,
So
it was pretty crazy. So I don't know. It was just a crazy event that happened, and it was cool that we seen that documentary and decided to watch it though.
I can't believe it was like almost 2 years ago now. It was already 2 years ago because it was April. It was April 2019. So yeah, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's been a while.
It seems like it was like just last year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That was in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So yeah, that's nuts. Anyway, can you imagine what Rehab would have been at that fire?
No.
Well, like we were talking the other night, like they showed a hose coming up the outside of the building up to the bell tower. So you're talking what? They said how tall it was, but I'm guessing like 100, 120 feet.
I don't know. I wasn't even gonna guess. I'm not good with that.
I have no idea, but like, can you imagine the pump operator on that line just like trying to figure out how to get enough pressure up that line to fight a fire? It's crazy.
Well, we're looking at all of it and I'm like, man, they're severely water deprived.
Well, the funny part is they're right next to a canal.
Yeah, but they didn't have like, I don't know, like they had the boats though.
Yeah,
But
they had
I don't
those two boats.
But
there.
like, do they? I'm assuming they have some way to draft. I'm assuming they
I would
were,
think so,
and they just
but-
didn't touch on it in the special or something.
Maybe,
Like
I don't know.
they're not gonna get so into all the workings of the fire department in there.
Yeah, that's true because it's probably just for like the general public.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, I mean, like I don't know. There was tons and tons of hoses out there, and they were talking about hooking up to hydrants and stuff. I'm like, there's a canal like literally right next to the building.
Suck it up, send it up.
That's right. I don't know. Whatever. But
Could you imagine those pump operators would have loved drafting and like pushing that up that high? Like it would have been so much fun.
no, man, that would have been a nightmare. There were so many hoses out. I don't even know. But,
They were all on top of each other, just looked like a big mess. I'm like, oh boy.
yeah. It was pretty cool. They showed their little adapters to go over hoses, like to drive over hoses.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to think an event that big, they're gonna have to move trucks in and out eventually.
Oh, eventually, yeah.
Stuff like that, and they actually have those. I think I've seen them before. I've just never seen any department near us that's had them. Usually, if you put a hose out, it's like that street's closed.
Yeah, pretty much. But we don't also have the big enough fires in the rural areas to have to move things around a lot. You
Yeah,
know,
but even,
usually
like,
you.
bigger departments around here, like you just not a common deal.
Yeah, no, but like something that big, you're gonna have to reassess and move things around. I think a lot more often.
Oh, I'm sure.
So.
But that was kind of cool. But,
yeah.
Let's see. There's 5 firefighters up in one of the towers for like 2 or 3 hours or something like that, trying to fight that rip fire.
It wasn't in the bell towers. It was.
No, it was in like the north.
Near the north section of it.
Yeah.
I don't know what they called it
I can't remember
officially.
what they called it, but which I don't know why they were up there that long, because they said they weren't making any progress.
Yeah, it
They
didn't make
weren't
any sense,
really
but
stopping it, but they kept them up there for some reason. So
yeah,
until the spire came down. So that was interesting. But I won't judge. I would have.
yeah, right.
I wouldn't even know what to do in that situation. So
No, it was very interesting. So
it was crazy interesting. So. Like I said, what do you think rehab was like there? 600,
well, I'm pretty sure.
Firefighters.
Well, if you think of those 5 firefighters, how long were they up there?
Yeah.
Like, if they were up there for that long, surely they weren't up there straight for 2 or 3 hours, right?
I don't know. That's all they said. They said they finally brought them down after that spire collapsed.
Well, then they definitely weren't on air.
No.
100%. Like, I don't know. I don't know how they judge that stuff though. Or maybe they just determined it wasn't technically interior firefighting, so they didn't need it. But to me, that's your last line of defense. Granted,
Well,
your
yeah,
air
all that
mask is
friggin-
the weakest part of your gear, but it's still gonna be better than just your face.
Yeah, but you gotta look at all the toxins that are in that, because I mean, they
Yeah.
had a lead roof on it, lead shingles or sheets or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and then all that old timber burning and just.
But imagine how many bottles you'd have to like replace right away and stuff.
Oh,
It
yeah,
just
I mean,
wouldn't
it'd
make
be
sense. But
ridiculous,
no, I feel like with like what 600 firefighters on scene, like I feel like they'd switch people out kind of a bit, or they move people from like more intense working to less intense.
yeah.
Like they might switch them out like that more often, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't imagine trying to manage 600 firefighters. That just seems crazy ridiculous. So.
The good thing is that it didn't last that long, so maybe the 600 firefighters were really pushing it that whole time.
Could have. I don't know.
It all depends on how their department's set up.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I don't know, see the command staff and just making plans and stuff like that's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway. Rehab, speaking of which, is what we wanted to cover tonight, right?
Such a smooth transition.
Yeah. Well, I tried and then I forgot and then I tried again. So, welcome to the episode tonight.
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna say we didn't say hi yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Hello.
to the episode.
Welcome to us not saying hi until 15 or 10 or 15 minutes in.
Yeah, depends on how you edit that, I guess.
Yeah, depends.
You guys heard us talking about the Notre Dame documentary. If you have Disney Plus, jump on there. It was pretty cool. It was interesting to watch.
It was very interesting to watch.
No, obviously it's not super based around fire department people watching it, but it was pretty cool to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a pretty good job on it, I think. So anyway, so yeah, tonight, kind of like I mentioned, tried to get into smoothly, but didn't really work. We're gonna talk about rehab tonight and just some notes and perspectives and things that we got on that.
I can hear the groans now. Oh no, they're talking about rehab.
Yeah, exactly. I can hear the arguments starting.
I can bet we probably don't have as many listens on this episode because they just see the title and they're like, no.
We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna listen to that one. Oh, I know, but
We hope you listen to this one because we actually, I don't know, I think we have some interesting points on this thing.
yeah, it's something that a lot of departments we've been to have kind of dealt with, and we've seen it how it's dealt with in different ways, and
Oh, all across the state, all across the U.S., we've seen it kind of dealt with a bunch of different ways.
yeah, and this is just obviously just our take on it, but just some points of views that we want to bring up and ideas, and hopefully it gets you somewhere. If your rehab isn't in good condition, hopefully we can help repair that. And if it is in good condition, maybe improve it, or you can just ignore us. I don't know, whatever you want to do. All right, so let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm a little scared.
You scared? It's just rehab. You don't have to be scared.
That's what they always tell you.
Yep, that's right. All right, so what are the common things we hear about as far as rehab goes? Between, honestly, it kind of comes out as an argument or a conflict between firefighters and EMTs. Like that's
I agree.
I think that's most commonly how I hear it, and it's mostly from the firefighter perspective. But
Yeah.
so what are the big things we always hear?
The first thing I always hear is that the EMTs always drag the firefighters by the foot all the way back from the structure, from wherever they're doing it, all the way back to rehab. And, sometimes it's after 2 bottles, sometimes it's only after 1 or less. It depends on when the EMTs get them, but the firefighters are always kind of like running away, and the EMTs just have to drag them on back,
Nope.
so.
Exactly. That's probably the most common one I hear, and this... And being from the background that I have, I totally understand it, because when there's a fire, that's where I want to be. I want to be on that hose line, putting that fire out. And
Don't we all?
yeah, I know, right? And so when I come out of a house to switch bottles and I get pulled away, I am not happy. And a lot of times, if you can avoid the EMTs and get another bottle and go back in before they see you, you're good to go. I relate to that because I know exactly where people are coming from. But that is by far probably the biggest one I hear.
Yeah.
So, the other ones is you end up sitting in rehab for the rest of the fire.
Quote unquote rest of the fire.
Yeah, quote unquote. You have like 10 minutes of glory, and then you sit in rehab for 20 minutes, and it sucks.
Yeah.
That's I hear that a lot too, and fortunately I feel like I don't get stuck in rehab quite that long, but I'm also an EMT, so
the EMTs trust you more than everybody else because you're an EMT.
Because I have some more of that knowledge, so. But.
So yeah, a lot of people get sad until their vitals are quote unquote normal, according to the EMTs. And from what I've been through myself and what I've seen from other departments too, it's the what they see as normal average, like the resting average for like a normal human being, not for people at work. Doing work. So
the vitals that they're looking for are like resting vitals or normal vitals, quote unquote.
Yeah. And though technically you're sitting down at rehab, are you really resting? Like at that time,
Yeah, I know what you're saying. So yeah, that's the second one, just you have to sit there forever, it seems like.
Yeah.
So, and then kind of the third thing, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it seems really common amongst everyone that we talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing. It's just finding shade for people to sit in, or sitting in the cab of the truck in the air conditioning or something like that. And there's always water going around.
Yeah.
Which are both really good things.
Yes.
So, air conditioning gets a little sketchy, kind of, and for me personally, just because I don't like going between air conditioning and heat, it makes my body go kind of nuts. But as far as like shade, a fan, something like that, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's always water going around. I got 3 bottles of water in my pocket that aren't finished drinking by the end of a fire, and
Yeah.
everyone's always handing out, so that's good. So, but those are the big ones. I mean,
yeah, those are the big things we hear about rehab, and a lot of those are good. And heck, if your rehab's like that, it's better than nothing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's better than nothing. Exactly.
Yeah, and the EMTs are doing their best to keep everyone safe. That is their main goal, to make sure that nothing happens on scene that they could have prevented. So I do understand it, but there are some things that I think I would like to see improve on rehab situations for volunteer departments. Just because I think there's a way to adapt with, not necessarily the times, but just adapt with.
Just make things more efficient, and just make the work between the EMTs
The working
or the
relationship?
rehab and the firemen, just little more less conflict between them.
Yeah.
Or seem like they're fighting a little bit less.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, these are just little things I think that we could probably change, at least on a small level, that would help out a lot.
Yeah.
So
Like you said before, I think a lot of departments, if they were to implement some of these, they would see a lot less firefighters fighting rehab.
yeah. All right, so let's go to the back to the first one here that we see all the time. Like you said, you're as a firefighter, you're getting drugged by the foot.
Yeah.
Back to the ambulance, back to wherever you have rehab set up, and the EMTs are literally like finding you and like pulling you by the air pack back to wherever you need to go. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty
that's
much.
if you come out the back door, there's an EMT waiting for you because they know that's where you're coming out. Now, sometimes you get in the spot where the chief tells someone, hey, go find this person. They've been in there way too long. Get them out.
Yeah.
You get that too. But a lot of times, yeah, most of us firemen, we want to be in the fire. We want to be in the fun stuff, and we don't want to go sit in rehab because we want to be having fun. So, what can we change to make that better? The first thing we can do is probably make rehab shorter for people.
I wouldn't say shorter necessarily. Yes, that
Or
is the goal.
How about this? As a firefighter, why do you hate going to rehab?
Why do I hate going to rehab? Because I have to get sit for much longer than what I feel as adequate or appropriate for my ability, for my body. I feel like I'm ready to go back to work way faster than what they say I am, and that comes from me knowing my body a lot, from keeping track of my body a lot.
Yeah, because you wear a Fitbit every day.
I wear a Fitbit every day.
Too.
Yeah, and I know where my body's at. I with the anxiety, I know when that's bothering me, and I know when that affects my heart rate, because it does.
Mm-hmm.
I know what's normal for me.
Right.
I know what's normal for me when I work out. I work out in high heart rate zones. That's where I target my workouts, because that's where I want to be, at least with some of my workouts, let's say, right? So there are times during those workouts I'm between 150 and 170 trying to, get to those higher heart ranges and stay up there for a full hour of cardio,
Yeah.
To better that type of workout, basically.
Yeah, to get a good cardio workout in.
Yeah. And so it's like I know that what's normal for me. And I know you do this too, Chris, with running.
Right, yeah.
So like your heart rate will get up in those kind of same ranges too for that.
When I run,
Granted, it's not like super far distances. It's not like
yeah, I'm not doing like marathons or anything like that. Just 1.5 miles, 2 miles, that kind of deal. But when I run, I'm trying to pace myself so my heart rate's more down to like 150 most of the time, but like that last lap or two or whatever, you really want to push it, and that's wearing a Fitbit, you can watch it. I'm getting up to like 170, sometimes into the 180s, and that's just that peak zone that you want to try to hit, because that's really what's going to give you that good conditioning. You don't want to stay there for a ton of time, but that's where you're going to push your body and make it better.
Yeah.
But
so
anyway,
let's equate this back to fire scene though. You're on the scene working. If you're doing a high cardio, and it can be a high cardio time in firefighting, depending on what you're doing. You're either lifting some sort of like quote unquote weights with stuff like that, or you really are pushing yourself hard doing a lot of different things.
Well, a lot of times that first primary push inside of a building it's a lot of adrenaline, and it's a lot of sit in a truck and all of a sudden you're go full speed, and that pushes your heart,
That does push your heart rate. So yeah, let's equate it with that. And I know I've heard a bunch of other places. I just can't think of the names of where I heard it from now, but I know it's a lot of different places that firefighters' heart rates can get up to 200 beats per minute inside of a house fire, inside of a structure fire.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Yeah, you have a lot of different physical things happening with your body, and just the freaking adrenaline push and the drive to do things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and so when we come out of those instances, most of the time EMTs in rehab, they're not waiting to pull you after a couple minutes, after you've had a chance to calm down. They pull you right away as soon as you come out of that house, right? Am I wrong?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
like at least in our immediate case, yeah, a lot of times, when you come out of a house, you get pulled right away, and they're sticking their blood pressure cuff on you, checking your heart rate, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So and if not, it's only like a minute, maybe 2 minutes between when you,
Maybe.
depending on the situation, but
Yeah.
there's usually not a whole lot of time between you coming out of a house and getting a blood pressure cuff stuck
Yeah.
on
So when they see that your heart rate's still kind of up there and kind of lingering, not like as high as it would be inside, but still lingering, they freak out. They're like, "How is it this high? How are you doing this? This doesn't make sense."
you. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm kind of always curious why they think that. Like, come on, you guys, we work out. Like, this is kind of working out for us.
Right. Yeah. Well, EMT perspective here, in a nutshell, we're taught a overall, 90-95% of the country, this is resting heart rates, and what we see as a standard is a resting heart rate. Especially in a small town, we go pick up a lot of elderly people. We don't pick up a whole lot of younger people that are out exercising.
Mm-hmm.
So all the vitals that we naturally look at are on the lower end of things anyway, and we're taught that baseline, resting baseline.
Yeah.
That's what we're taught, and that's what we see 90% of the time. So that's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't know. Does that answer what you're asking? I guess.
But yeah, it does. It does.
I mean,
so kind of something. So just kind of putting that all in mind, right, and having us all hopefully be in tune to our own bodies, and that's something. It does take a lot of trust with the firefighters to be in tune with their own bodies for this to work.
So I guess coming back to what we were actually trying to get
Trying to get to
point is what is normal for each person when they are stressed or they are exercising or they come out of that environment where their vitals are going to be elevated.
Yeah, so there's an
And
easy
finding
way.
that safe zone and what's normal for them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's an easy way to get this. Well, a couple. It's not easy, but it's pretty easy. First of all, you want to try to find a baseline for each person when they're actually at rest. Do this at the beginning of a meeting or like at the very beginning of a fire practice before anything happens. Get vitals for everybody on there. Then you have like a true resting vitals for each person because they are going to be different.
Yeah.
And that way you have them on the books. But then you also do, let's say they've been doing a lot of work in this practice or something like that. Or you put them through an absolute course a few times or something, right? They're doing work. They've done between 10 and 20 minutes of work. Kind of equivalent what they'd be doing out on like a structure fire or something, right? Then you take their vitals. And you don't want to wait a long time for them to cool down. You want to pull them as soon as you're going to pull them if they were to come out of a building. Take that, kind of think back to your department and think of how soon you're going to pull them from that. And then you pull them then and you take their vitals then. And you see where they are. Because it's going to give you a lot better idea of where they're going to be when you pull them out of a house and if they're okay or if they're way too stressed or whatever it may be. You're going to be able to do your EMT wizardry on their vitals of like knowing what's too high or what's compensating or things like that from their working vitals.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It gives you a literal baseline of them when they are exercising.
Yeah.
It's very personalized.
Yeah. And then it gives with people because we've seen and heard of a lot of people who can't get their heart rates down or different things down enough or quick enough or whatever, right? And I know with me, my anxiety, if it starts going, and it does on a fire, it does, it doesn't let my heart rate come down at all, or not much. It'll come down to like an acceptable range for me, but I'm used to what it does to my body. I'm used to what it tells me. I'm used to dealing with that. But an EMT sees that and they don't see that other side of things. So if you have these other baselines and stuff, because if you wanted to, you could take another, you could take a third baseline. Now that I'm thinking about it, you could take a third baseline after you take the second one after they've been exercising. Take a third one 5 or 10 minutes later. See where it is then. So that way you have 3 things to go from. So you see how long it takes for them on a normal day, not in a stress-induced environment of a structure fire, to get down to those vitals.
Yeah, to recover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say too, and just adding on to what you're saying here. When I did advanced SCBA work at the fire school,
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what we did in there, we had a obstacle course where you had to crawl through some rafters, use a sledgehammer on a or a sledgehammer on a tire. I can't even remember everything you did. There was like 4 or 5 different things that you did, and they were all just a little bit different. But you did them as hard as you could, and you basically went around this course until you were down to a half a bottle. And the object of this was, of course, to tell you how long you could go on a bottle of air. But you had to push yourself to so you could literally figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great exercise for doing this because you're pushing your body. You're trying to do it as quick as you can, as efficient as you can, and then when you get to that halfway point on a bottle, that's when you get pulled.
Yeah.
And you check your vitals. And then, like you're saying, okay, you let them set down, relax for 5 minutes, and you take another set of vitals. And you can see how fast that individual person is going to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on scene, you have a house fire, you take their vitals, okay, they're high, about normal for them. But then in 5 minutes, you take it again, and they're not recovering as fast
as they would
as they normally would. Then you can kind of make a better judgment call of, okay, yeah, you need to sit here a little bit longer, or yeah, you're close enough, go ahead and go.
Yeah,
you just have a better personalized baseline for them.
Exactly. And yeah, it's more what's normal for them.
Yeah. And so, okay, going back even further, the reason why a lot of us don't want to go to rehab is because we have to sit there so long.
Yeah, because we're sitting down to the really resting heart rate,
Right, yeah.
For me and my anxiety, that's never going to happen.
So if we can get more personalized baseline on everyone, I know it's a lot more work, especially for the bigger departments out there. But if you can get that personalized baseline, a lot of times you can move people through that rehab a lot quicker and get them back to what they want to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it helps with staffing. We'll get to that too later. But it helps with just making sure you have people to work.
Yeah. If you're on a smaller department that only has, I don't know, like 15 guys or something like that,
mm-hmm.
and maybe only half of you can go in, and you come out of a building, get put in rehab, well, you're down a fireman.
Yeah.
And say your partner gets put in rehab too. Now you're down 2. So you're down to 6 people that can go inside maybe.
Possibly.
And it keeps getting shorter and shorter. But yeah, overall, I think if you get those personal baselines, though, it's going to help with rehab time, and people are going to be less reluctant to go because they know if they just go, they're going to get back in there faster.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to put this in here because I don't think we've said it yet. This does not counter any actual health issues that people have that about, or if you notice someone's having a bad time and needs to sit out, you do what you think is best, what is going to keep people safe. But if all's acting normal and all's acting fine and it's just a normal everyday thing, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about
we're not talking about medical histories and signs of oh, my left side's numb, but my vitals are good.
Right. No. Yeah.
Obviously, be smart about it, but
okay. I just had to put that in here somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not including medical histories here, or medical issues, but that's just something that I think if we changed kind of that sense as a whole in the very rural volunteer departments. I think people would be less reluctant to go to rehab.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we stuck on that point for a while.
Next one.
So the next one is weighing the need to do our jobs with safety. And this kind of, I don't know, it's a very broad thing, so you want to keep people safe, and that is the number one overall goal. Yes, other than actually putting out the fire. But, for rehab, that's the number one goal is keep people safe, right?
Right, yeah.
But you do need to weigh that sometimes with getting the job done. And I think as firefighters, it's okay to push ourselves. I don't think we should push ourselves to breaking points necessarily, but it's okay to work hard, to push ourselves farther than normal sometimes on a fire to get things done.
Yeah, and there would be definitely some situations that call for that. I mean, you're right there at that breaking point, and sometimes you got to push just a little bit harder to complete that task.
Yeah. And again, if somebody is obviously won't be able to go push that extra mile, set them out, of course. But if someone could go push that extra mile and you think they're going to be fine, even if their vitals aren't perfect, I think it's okay.
It's all a judgment call, really.
the next part, we want to see firefighters not fight it so much.
I think a lot of that's kind of a culture thing too.
Yeah.
Like, if a lot of your senior firefighters are fighting going to rehab,
Every new person coming on will also.
yeah, they want to be included in the group.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be that guy that goes to the EMTs with every little thing. But so I think that kind of ties a little bit into culture. But if that's something you're trying to change in your department to make things a little bit easier, step up and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're an officer, don't fight it. If you get asked to go to rehab, go to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one's pretty simple, but obviously it's going to make everything go a lot better. Just try to train your guys, teach your guys that rehab's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
The last thing we'd like to see kind of change for these departments everywhere is, the EMTs to trust the firefighters. And also, the firefighters need to know when they need rehab.
yeah. So my perspective from an EMT standpoint.
Oh, you're putting that hat on?
Yeah, I'm putting an EMT hat on here. Is we as EMTs, and this is gonna come out really bad, and it's not as bad as it sounds, but we don't trust you guys because we know that's all you want to do is be in that house fighting that fire. That's all you guys want to do. That's your drive. But we don't trust you to know the medical side of your bodies and like when your body's had enough.
I can understand that because a lot of people aren't as in tuned as I am to what my body's telling me.
Right. And a lot of people are, but they're just going to ignore it.
Yeah, that
because
too.
they just want to go do that.
They want to go do the thing.
Right, yeah. And so as an EMT, we're doing it for your benefit. Like, you're not going to do it yourself, so we're going to do it for you. And I think that's pretty common because, honestly, the EMTs are kind of like the mother hens of the fire department. I
like
feel like we worry about everything, and we don't want anyone to get hurt because then we feel like that's on us and we should have seen it and we should have done something about it. And we're just going to keep everyone safe. Even if we're going a little overboard, it's better to be way too safe than not safe enough. So, yeah, just the EMTs don't trust firemen to do the right thing because they want to be doing something else. And the firefighters, again, this is very small rule department, but firefighters just need to learn when they've hit that limit, when their body's showing that signs of stress, and they just need to kind of get over it and go, yeah, you know what, I'm done. I had one of those events. I went from doing interior work. We had a attic fire. And I went from doing interior work, came out of the house, let someone else go in and do that, switch my bottle, and then I had to go up on the roof and cut a hole. We did ventilation on it. And I was able to push through getting that hole cut, but it was a very big notice that when I went to put that chainsaw on the roof, my arms, my shoulders, everything was getting weak to the point where, you know what, I'm done. It was very obvious to me. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but it was very obvious that, especially by the time I got done cutting that hole and punching that hole in there, that I came down the ladder and I think one of our officers was standing there and he goes, "You all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going to go sit down for a little while and kind of recuperate." And he goes, "Yep, go get some water out front," and that was that, it was just, but I knew my body had already hit that limit and things were starting to give out and be very physical at that point, It wasn't just so much my vitals, but like I knew I'd hit that point where I wasn't doing any good anymore. Like yeah. I kind of hit that wall. It's time to go, So
well, I think people forget how much weight we carry around with us in the first place. People, when they're walking around, even if they do a lot of work or they do like a normal or like a hands-on job or something like that, they're like, "Oh, I can do this, no problem." They don't realize, first of all, that gear's heavy and it's hot, okay? But on top of that, you're usually doing tools or something else, or have a nair pack on your back for the whole day or for whatever, right? People aren't used to doing that, even if they're used to manual labor. Right, it's something so different, so you're gonna get wore out quicker than what you think, what you anticipate, and a lot of people don't want to be seen as weak. They don't want to be seen as, "Oh, I'm gonna be done after an hour or 30 minutes of hard work. Have to go get a break. That's not manly.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. There's that side of it too. You know, you don't want to be seen as a weak link, but
hmm
yeah, as a firefighter, you need to know when you need that break,
yeah,
and that's also going to help build the trust with the EMTs, which is going to make that whole situation better.
yeah.
So,
Well, that brings up a whole nother point of like, exercising and, doing more of that type of labor or whatever
right,
things
yeah.
on the off time, but we won't get into that right now.
So, but I think if we, I don't know, hopefully you guys followed us through that, but I think if we address those 4 or 5 issues right there,
hmm
I think that would go a long ways in rehabs for fire departments.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would. So, um, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like if you're in a career department, it's a whole different ball game.
I have no idea. I haven't talked to anyone on the career side to even know.
I've listened to scanners and stuff like that from my phone of different departments, and it really doesn't seem like it's more of an issue. But there's also a lot more of a command structure in a career department or a professional department. That
Yeah, there
when,
usually is.
You know, when the battalion chief says to do something, you do it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's
I
no
guess-
excuse. So
I know it
think
sounds
there's
stupid.
Probably a different mentality there.
I know it sounds stupid. I've never thought about, like, really hard about rehab for career departments. For some reason, obviously people get tired. Obviously,
yeah.
they need rehab.
Well, especially like in the summer when it's really hot.
Yeah, but, like, I'm used to volunteer departments doing rehab. I'm used to how they do rehab, like, just how it works. I wonder if it works the same way. Does it work a little differently? Like, how often do they take breaks? I'm really curious now.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as what they do on rehab, I don't know. I know the few departments that I do listen to, what they say on the radio is basically go sit down, take a break, get some water.
Yeah.
You know, but it's usually in the middle of summer when it's freaking hot outside. And
Yeah, but, like,
so
would
do
they,
take
like,
vitals
have,
and stuff like
yeah,
that?
that's what I'm
I don't know.
wondering.
I'm not sure.
Ah.
I'm guessing there's some sort of.
Or is it more kind of lenient because they are all paid and they're all kind of, this is their job, so they should know better, for lack of better words? Like, you know,
Right,
they...
I don't know.
I don't know.
So we'll stick to the volunteer side. But all right, moving on. Next up,
I just want to talk about some other little things that we thought about with the subject, I think, is kind of the best way to categorize this.
yeah,
So like, we kind of touched on this before. Guys not admitting when they're hurt or when they're tired. First of all, get over yourself.
there is a lot of pride in the fire service, and pride is a good thing, but it can also hurt.
Yeah.
So I think what Taylor is trying to say is, if you're tired or hurt, just admit it and know that's someplace that you need to get better.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
And don't let your pride get in the way of causing bigger problems.
I'm sorry, was I too abrasive with my comment?
I don't know. There's a little bit of a.
What just happened? Like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes, people will. They won't go to rehab, or they'll say I'm fine, or they're not tired, or whatever. But they, not on purpose, right? People don't do anything on purpose like this, right? But something may happen where either, let's say, they have heat stroke or something, right? Or maybe somebody's blood sugar crashes. Maybe somebody's arms are too tired, like Chris. Your arms could have been way too tired. You could have dropped that chainsaw and hurt somebody, or yourself. Like, there could be so many different things. You could be so tired and you're driving a truck and you accidentally crash or something, right? There's so many different ways it can happen. And it's just because people don't admit that they have a weakness, or that they're tired most of the time, or that they're wore out, or that they need a break, right?
Oh,
and it could be avoided.
Yeah, and kind of like what we said before, just most people, especially in the fire service, don't want to be seen as the weak link.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of alphas. we don't want to be seen as a weak link. We want to outdo everyone there. So it's
yeah.
definitely the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of headaches could be saved if people would just ground themselves and understand it's okay to take breaks. Understand it's okay to be tired. As human, you're human to do these things.
Absolutely.
So, and people who do these things don't make the EMTs trust the firefighters anymore.
Right,
Actually, those are the things that actually reinforce the EMTs to want to be a little harsher on
Right,
enforcing
yeah.
things and dragging them by the foot.
Mm-hmm. Exactly what you said. You're not helping the trust issue with the EMT, so of course they're gonna come pull you out when you won't come.
Yeah.
But if you start doing this and they start recognizing that you're coming to them before they're pulling you out, they're
Mhm.
gonna start trusting you a lot more,
Oh yeah.
and then things will get a little more lenient,
Or
a little
even if
more
you,
workable.
even if you're not going to them, if you're not fighting it,
Right?
they're gonna
Yeah.
see it.
Yep. Exactly.
They're gonna be like, "Why was this fire so easy?"
The next thing to continue on with our conversation here is a situation that we ran into here. It's been years now.
Yeah, it's been years.
It's been years. We had a fire on a department that we were on, and it actually got to the point where we had so many people getting wore out, or in rehab, or just trying to physically recover, because it was a long fire.
Yeah.
Um, that we were getting to that point where we didn't have a whole lot of people to keep working.
Yeah, because I think we had quite a bit of people for what we had to be able to go inside. Because I think we had about 10 people who could go inside,
Yeah,
rotating in and out.
10 or 12, I can't remember. We had quite a few there.
We did. It was a big fire for us.
It was a very big fire.
We all started. There was some people who just started getting wore out in the first place, and then there were some people who were just getting sat for longer than what they needed to. It started out that way, but then it ended up towards the end of the evening, everyone was just getting tired.
Yeah, and the recovery times were getting a lot longer because we were just physically wore out. We'd just been pushing for so long that we were taking longer to recover because we were just physically wore out.
And that happens.
It does. So there's a couple things here that I just want to bring up just because it's one of those weird things that doesn't happen very often, but I think when it does, it's pretty important. So, like in this case, we had a big fire. When we got to this point where we were running low on people to keep getting inside and keep working this fire, basically, you got to start thinking about resources, mutual aid. If you have mutual aid, they're a great resource. Know who you can call, who's closest, who has the
knowledge,
skills
yeah,
and
the skills and
ability
knowledge
to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good resource and an important one that you need to know about. I mean, you need to be familiar with your mutual aid and what resources you have. That's what they're there for. So, and then the other thing that you can do here, and this is kind of the same thing, probably this fire probably isn't a great example of it, but when you're running short on people and you have a lot of people in rehab, whoever your command is, whoever your lead officer is, I guess, I don't know how you want to say that, but
your IC,
your instant commander, talk to that rehab coordinator and see if there's any way you can either get people from it if it hasn't been a long fire like this case. Because we were there for what, 3 hours when this started probably happening.
I think it was probably closer to 4 or 5 hours, about 4 hours when it started happening.
Okay. So we were a long ways into this one, so that's why we ended up calling it mutual aid. But if you got a shorter fire where, maybe you've only been there for half hour, 45 minutes, and you just got a lot of people in rehab.
And maybe it's the same situation like we said before, where they're bringing either people back down to their normal, or the average normal, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, just whoever that IC is, talk to that person who's in charge of rehab, and just talk with them, communicate with them, say, hey, I need a couple more guys. If we get 10 more minutes on this, 5 more minutes, whatever, we can have this thing under control and knocked down. They might give you some people, or just talk to them and say, hey, I just need more people to rotate through. So if there's any way we can get more people through here, or is there anything we can do to do that so we don't have to call in mutual aid?
Yeah. Because sometimes you just need a couple more people, and you can knock the fire out and be done. You just need maybe just like 1 or 2 more people to just really hammer it home. Exactly. And if you can get that from your own guys before calling in mutual aid, as long as it's safe to do, why wouldn't you do that?
Right, yeah. So just have that conversation, have that open conversation there, and know about it, I guess. Another option for you. Alrighty. And continuing on. Rehab. Long fires. We get hungry.
We get hungry.
That's part of rehab.
That's part of rehab. So, having food on scene, I think it's a good thing. Most of the time.
Yeah, I
For
agree.
the longer fires, not for
Yeah.
the short ones. Yeah,
Not
obviously.
for the short ones, but
Yeah.
you got the longer fires that you haven't eaten since lunch, and the call went out at 3 o'clock, and it's 7 o'clock. Probably getting a little hungry.
Or you haven't eaten since lunch and it went out at 6 o'clock and it's 10 o'clock.
There you go.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, we mentioned this in our long call operations episode a while ago, whatever episode that was at this point. But we're going to go ahead and mention it here again, too, just so it's kind of nice and together with rehab. So, for food on scene, first of all, Taylor's opinion, I think Chris is kind of on this one, too, though. I'd like to have clean eating foods. That's more of what makes me happy on a scene. That's what my body likes on a scene personally. And every person can be different. I will agree with that. But I think I like to go under the strategy of we are athletes on scene. So we need to be eating like athletes would eat on their game days or whatever. Like I said before in another podcast, I will not knock donations, right? So if you have food there from donations, that's fine. This is like prefer if you have a choice for stuff. I'm thinking I like adult Lunchables is what I'm going to call it. I like
Right.
give me like little blocks of cheese and stuff, get me some lunch meat, like stuff like that, like some apple slices, give me adult Lunchables is what, like some crackers.
That's a good equivalent, yeah.
Right? I like sandwiches. I like just nothing greasy for me personally.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff I like having. But I also like colder foods on a fire. So I know you flip-flop, Chris, depending on hot or cold weather or whatever.
I mean, honestly, I'll eat about anything when it comes to a fire scene. It really doesn't matter to me. What's good for me and what I need is a whole different story. But like you said, with the donations, when we have long calls or big calls that
it's
the
not
public
uncommon
knows
to get
about,
pizza.
Oh yeah, we'll get pizza from local restaurants,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I love
it's
pizza,
great.
don't get me wrong.
It's great. I love it. The only thing I have to say is, depending on what the food is, if it's sandwiches, that's awesome. I love sandwiches. They taste good. They're easy to eat. You can make a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
When we get the greasy foods like pizza and stuff like that, I love them. They taste good. They're very filling.
They're hot, which is nice.
Yeah. For me though, like I just have to watch how much I eat. I can't eat till I'm full because it's the grease in it. You know, it's like, so if we get some that really good pizza that you can
the really good pizza,
stopping and greasing up, freaking love it. But 1-2 slices, that's the max I have.
That is our like Saturday night cheat night type of meal right there.
Yeah. But when you get those greasy foods, though, you don't eat until you're stuffed,
Yeah.
Because then you got to go back out and work, and you got all that grease in there. And for me personally, it just don't work. So if we get that donation, definitely love it. But I'm only having like 1 or 2 slices.
Yeah.
Whereas if we get sandwiches and stuff, I can have 2, 3 sandwiches.
Well, I know there's other options than just lunch meat and sandwiches out there
Oh, right,
for stuff
yeah.
like this. There's tons of options out there. Just try to look it up. Try to find more things that you're going to want on like an active day if you're working, doing something.
Protein bars, granola bars.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think of something more meal-like.
Kind of snacks and stuff like that, but it's a great way to keep going.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of something more meal-like. But,
yeah.
Just keep your eyes open for options out there. And I think when it comes to those donations and stuff, I think maybe the first step is just to kind of start educating the public about it a little bit more. Like, you love their donations, and you never want to knock that because volunteer departments could not survive without the donations.
Right.
But, there's always something we prefer. So it's like, I think a little bit comes from
just that public education side of it. I mean, just letting them know that, hey, if that's what you want to donate, that's great. But this is somehow kind of subconsciously teach them that we don't necessarily need pizza.
I know that
or something. I don't know.
The local pizza place, whatever, they make sub sandwiches too.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And I know pizzas are easy to make, don't get me wrong. So, like, if they're going to donate that, it's easy for them to do. I understand it. But if they're okay with donating the sub sandwiches instead, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot more nutritional for you than pizza, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just that subconscious kind of public education, I guess,
Yeah.
there. But
Anyways, moving on from
um,
that.
yeah, greasy foods. Like I said, if we get a nice, greasy, delicious pizza, I'm all in for it. But it's only one or two pieces, because the next thing is don't overeat,
Yeah.
especially if it's greasy.
Doesn't matter what it is, don't overeat.
Yeah, but especially if it's greasy, for me personally, I can not it just makes me sick. But the way I think of this one is if you're going on a car trip and you stop at your first place and eat, supper that night, well, let's say lunch. You stop and eat lunch.
You stop at an IHOP and you get a full stack plus some extras on the side.
Yeah, and you eat absolutely everything and you're just stuffed and it's so delicious and you're drooling out your mouth and then you go sit in a car for 5 hours.
You're gonna die.
You just freaking hurt. It's the same thing on a fire scene. If you just completely stuff yourself because you're exhausted and tired and really hungry, and then you go back out and work, I don't know about everyone else, but it makes me freaking hurt.
Yeah.
Just like sitting in that car for the next 5 hours, just uncomfortable and just ugh,
Mm-hmm.
So be really cautious. If you're one of those people that can stand it, great, go for it. But I think most people out there probably, if you overeat, you're probably gonna be really uncomfortable if you go back to work after that.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little heads up there on water versus pop. Obviously,
I am definitely a proponent of drinking more water than pop. You're not staying hydrated if you're drinking pop. Yes, it's a liquid. That doesn't mean it's hydrating you. So just make sure you're drinking water. That's basically that. I feel like people are smart enough now. They should know the difference between water and pop. And pop does not hydrate you, and you lose so much hydration. The amount of water that your body releases when you're working on a fire scene is so high. There's so many graphics out there, infographics and things, and information out there that I've seen, even here recently, within the last couple weeks, about this. You need to drink so much water just to keep up on a fire scene. So one way to do that is to try to, first of all, drink before you're thirsty. So if you're on a fire scene, you're not thirsty yet, go ahead and get a bottle of water, stick it in your pocket of your gear, and start drinking it. Because once you lose it, it is so hard to get rehydrated. Once you're thirsty, you're too late. Basically, you have to fight so hard to get rehydrated, and doing that on a fire scene is not going to work. It's going to drain you that much faster, and you're not going to be able to play and do the fun stuff if you're dehydrated.
Right. Yeah, water is by far the best thing you can have. I won't knock that. I won't argue with that. But if it's a really long fire, I do like having a pop in there. Just that extra sugar, that different taste. I drink a lot of pop. I'm very unhealthy.
Well, it's like other people having coffee. It's still not the same as water, but I would equivalent coffee to pop on a fire scene.
Yeah. By no means is that going to be the only thing I drink, but if I've had 4 or 5 bottles of water and somebody happens to donate some pop, I'm probably going to have a pop and then go back to the water. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just you should be drinking way more water than pop. So
yeah, I know one guy on our old department, he would have a bottle of water in his locker. Mm-hmm. That he would keep there. He would switch it out every once in a while for like a fresh bottle or whatever, but he would drink it on the way to a fire if we had one, just so he stayed on top of that hydration right away. And it'd be, if you can chug it and not feel sick, go ahead. But even if you can't do that,
that's what I was thinking. If I chugged a bottle of water before I went to a fire, I'd be so freaking hurting by the time I got off that truck.
Yeah, but even if you got a few drinks out of it, that's better than what you were when you went to get in your gear.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So you're already trying your best to stay on top of that.
Yeah.
So something we think would be interesting to add to rehab, though, to kind of make things a little more comfortable / I don't know, just...
I can't remember who has it. Somebody has one, and I've seen it. I can't remember who it is.
Someone actually has one? I can't... Yeah. I thought of the idea once or whatever, but I...
Yeah, I swear I've seen someone that had one. That's why it came to my mind, but... Maybe you were just talking about, I don't know.
So thought here is buy a pop-up tent for your department. And what we mean by it is like a pop-up canopy, like the 10 by 10. You see them at trade shows and things. You see them at state fairs. I don't know. Track meets.
We used one at a training burn. That's where it came.
Oh,
That's
okay.
where it came from. It was actually we had a training burn,
And
and
someone had it up because we couldn't find shade.
yeah, we didn't have any shade where we were burning these houses at, and someone brought one over and set it up, and we were all kind of like, "Hey, this is pretty nice. We got shade, a little bit of breeze coming through here. It was pretty nice,
Right? So just buy one of those for your department. It doesn't have to be an expensive one or anything. A lot of hardware stores or other places have them out there.
Yeah.
And just have them, if you don't have room for them on a truck, go ahead and just keep them at the station. And if your EMTs are coming out and going to do rehab anyways, just have them grab that pop-up tent before they come out for that.
If you're fortunate enough to have an auxiliary that's willing to bring you things while you're on scene,
yeah,
get in contact with them, just leaving a space where obviously where they can get it, but
yeah,
um,
just like that. And another part to this, well, first of all, with the pop-up tent, going back to that quick, if you're able to get like one or two like quote unquote walls for it or whatever, I think that'd be a good idea to make sure you don't have to keep chasing the shade as it moves. So at least like one side of it, like, is always blocking the sun or whatever.
Yeah, keep that sun out.
Yeah. So just that's one little point that I think you should have a wall with it, at least one wall. Okay, anyways, moving on. So another couple of things, grab some either cheap bag chairs or folding chairs. And it's the same thing with the pop-up tent. Just makes it a little more comfortable. You have chairs for these firefighters to sit in for the few minutes that they're sitting down.
Yeah.
And bag chairs are so cheap and they fold up so nicely. Just throw in two to four of them in the back of the ambulance with the pop-up tent, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And I think more, I love the pop-up tent, but more with the folding chairs, I think is more for like, at least in our experience, more like the grass fires and stuff like that, where you're kind of out who knows where. Because usually, like, if we're in town, like at a house fire or something like that, there's nothing to sit on a truck or on a curb or something like that.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. It'd be nice to just have the chairs there. And sometimes we do have, in the past, we have had other residents bring chairs and things.
Yeah, bring some lawn chairs.
But it's nice not to have to rely on that.
Right. It is. I guess that's more or less where I think of it, because there's a lot of quote unquote chairs around a fire scene, but when you're out in the roll fighting a grass fire or something like that, a lot of times the trucks aren't sitting still. You have to kind of sit on the ground or whatever, and it's just kind of uncomfortable. But anyway, so continuing on, a few tricks that I've learned the hard way about rehab and the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one is, if it's winter, if it's freezing or even close to freezing outside, and you're coming out of a house and you have to go into rehab, no matter how hot you are, don't take off your coat. You can unzip it, zip it down, open it up, whatever you need to. Just don't take that coat off, because obviously I didn't think about it. So just like I said, it's a little trick for you here. As soon as you take that coat off and it's that cold outside, it's going to freeze, and you will never get that coat warmed back up, because all your sweat from your body and everything has been into that coat. It's wet, and as soon as that cold air gets a chance to freeze it, it's frozen. You're cold the rest of the night. It's miserable. So don't take off your coat. You can unzip it, cool down that way or whatever. Just don't take it off and let it freeze.
Learn from Chris's mistakes.
Yes, that sucked. It was another probably 2 hours out there at least, and I froze the whole time. Never got warmed back up, and it was miserable. So, that being said...
That's also why you keep a second pair of socks in your gear,
That
right?
is also why I keep a second pair of socks in my gear. Because if your feet get wet, again, they're sweating and everything like that, and you go outside and your boots cool off and your socks get cold, you just can't get them warm back up. There's no way to do it. So, that being said, if you do go to rehab, it's freezing outside, you have to take off your coat for some reason, go inside a vehicle, even if you're super freaking hot, go inside a vehicle, take that coat off, just don't let that stuff freeze.
Yeah.
That way you don't freeze when you put it back on. So, and plus inside the vehicles are going to be cooler than it was in your gear, and you're going to stay warm, and it's better all around.
Yeah.
So that's my trick and tip for that. So
I haven't learned any hard lessons in the wintertime.
Oh, I freaking learned that one. That one sucked. And I think I even got our safety officer at the time gave me his structure gloves because mine were frozen and my hands were cold, and just I learned a whole lot of lessons that night about fighting fires in the winter. So
you gotta do it sometime, right?
yeah, you got to learn somehow, and unfortunately, I learned that one the hard way. But it was a lesson well learned. So,
I think that's it.
yeah, I think so. I mean, we covered a lot on rehab. So
We did.
for being such a nasty subject, we sure got a decent amount of time out of it.
So was it really all that bad, you guys?
Hopefully it helps. Whatever you manage to get out of our little ramble here and thoughts and stuff like that, hopefully it helps in one way or another. So
Yeah.
and maybe, like I said before, maybe your rehab works freaking perfect, and if that's the case, let us know, and then just forget everything we just told you.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know how it is, and we will add those to our notes for us.
We'll do like an update episode, like rehab updated.
Everybody told us how we were wrong, so this is what we're changing.
Exactly. So, alrighty. You got anything else?
I got
for
nothing.
tonight? No,
We're good.
You good. All right. So,
Thank you.
As always, guys, no matter what time you're listening to us, daytime, nighttime, early in the morning, I hope you have a good day, had a good day, whatever the case may be. So,
We'll have a good day.
We'll have a good day. I don't know.
You missed one of the, there you go.
Something. I don't know. Anyway, hope you're having a good one, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
Be sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening to us.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Couplings Fire Podcast.
See you next time.